You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
The DMV has established itself as a top-tier player in the global cyber industry. DMV Rising is the premier event for cyber leaders and innovators to engage in meaningful discussions and celebrate the innovation happening in and around the Washington, D.C. area. Join us on Thursday, September 18th to connect with the leading minds shaping our field and experience firsthand why the Washington, D.C. region is the beating heart of cyber innovation. Visit dmvrising.com to secure your spot. Risk and compliance shouldn't slow your business down. Hyperproof helps you automate controls, integrate real-time risk workflows, and build a centralized system of trust so your teams can focus on growth, not spreadsheets. From faster audits to stronger stakeholder confidence, Hyperproof gives you the business advantage of smarter compliance. Visit www.hyperproof.io to see how leading teams are transforming their GRC programs.
Today is August 28th, 2025. I'm Maria Varmazis, and this is T-Minus.
T-Minus. 20 seconds to LOS T-Dress. Go for deploy. Roger, roll.
NASA's sounding rocket mission Tomex Plus finally took off from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility on Wallops Island, Virginia last night.
4.
ESA and Avio have secured 3 missions to fly on the Vega C rocket as auxiliary passengers from the European spaceport in French Guiana.
3.
FAA headquarters staff will be moved into the U.S. Transportation Department headquarters in Washington, D.C.
2.
Firefly Aerospace has received FAA clearance to resume Alpha rocket launches following the Flight 6 mishap.
1.
Redwire has been awarded a NASA single award contract to support operations on the International Space Station. Today I'll be speaking to Greg Gillinger from Integrity ISR to get an update on what China is up to on orbit. Want to know the latest on the Chinese refueling mission or why there's an increased launch cadence for its Guowang P LEO constellation? Well, stick around after today's Intel briefing to find out more. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. Let's dive into today's headlines. Redwire has been awarded a NASA single award to support operations on the International Space Station. The indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract has a $25 million ceiling for a 5-year period to fulfill future task orders for biotechnology facilities, on-orbit operations support, mission integration, and related services for the agency on the ISS. Redwire's capabilities are intended to support the diverse set of life and materials sciences research investigations that NASA processes every year. The company will provide turnkey services to manage, integrate, and facilitate experiments and support on-orbit operations for NASA-funded research investigations aboard the ISS. And through this contract, Redwire was recently issued a $2.5 million task order from NASA's In-Space Production Applications Program to support additional drug development investigations on the ISS using Redwire's Pillbox technology. And John Vellinger, president of Redwire In-Space Industries, said in the press release, as the sole recipient for this IDIQ contract, Redwire is grateful for NASA's continued trust in our proven biotechnology capabilities and experience, and we are committed to enabling new discoveries for NASA and the ISS science community. Firefly Aerospace has received Federal Aviation Administration clearance to resume Alpha rocket launches following the Flight 6 mishap on April 29, 2025. The company conducted a thorough investigation with the FAA and, in parallel, assembled an independent review board of multiple government agencies, customers, and industry experts. The findings confirmed Firefly's flight safety program performed nominally throughout all phases of flight. Both Alpha stages landed safely in the Pacific Ocean, and the launch posed no risk to public safety. Corrective actions have been implemented to prevent another mishap, including increasing thermal protection systems thickness on Stage 1 and reducing the angle of attack during key phases of the flight. With FAA approval to return to flight and corrective actions implemented, Firefly is now working to determine the next available launch window for Alpha Flight 7. And speaking of the FAA, Reuters says that they are moving offices. According to a memo from the U.S. Transportation Department, the Federal Aviation Administration headquarters staff in Washington, D.C. will move out of the current building and consolidate agency IT and other systems. So where are they going? Well, the answer is to be closer to the DOT, of course. The FAA headquarters staff will be moved into the building that houses the U.S. Transportation Department headquarters in Washington. And the memo obtained by Reuters also says that it will begin sunsetting legacy systems and embracing advanced technologies as it works to, quote, streamline our processes, consolidate administrative functions, and modernize our infrastructure to better serve the American public. All of this is really not a surprising move given the reorg that we are seeing at the moment, and we are sure that it will be made public in the coming weeks. We have an update now on the European Space Agency's recently acquired missions. In addition to the ISAR contract, which we mentioned on yesterday's show, by the way, ESA and Avio have secured 3 missions to fly on the Vega C rocket as auxiliary passengers from the European spaceport in French Guiana. The missions are part of the Flight Ticket Initiative, which is a collaboration between the European Space Agency and the European Commission for European companies and institutions to test and prove new products and applications in space. It encourages the use of new European launchers. The missions with Avio will allow Spanish company Perse to operate its ET-PAC mission to demonstrate a solution to deorbit satellites using a kilometer-long aluminum tape that will be extended from the satellite. And German Aerospace Center, known as DLR, will fly its Pluto Plus CubeSat to demonstrate a high-performance yet compact avionics system. And finally, French company Grasp is developing an Earth observation constellation. Under the contract signed, their second satellite in the constellation, called GapMap-1, will launch on one of the Vega C flights. Are you on the U.S. East Coast, specifically around the Mid-Coast, and saw some confusing trails in the sky last night like some of our colleagues did? Well, those vapor trails were caused by NASA's sounding rocket mission, the TOMX Plus. It finally took off from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility on Wallops Island, Virginia last night. The Turbulent Oxygen Mixing Experiment Plus, or TOMX Plus, is a NASA sounding rocket mission to investigate one of the Earth's most turbulent atmospheric regions, called the mesopause, not to be confused with menopause, also very turbulent. The mesopause is a region of the upper atmosphere stretching from about 53 to 65 miles in altitude at the boundary between Earth's mesosphere and Earth's thermosphere. This sodium layer forms from the constant influx of dust grain-sized meteors that burn up in the sky. A specialized laser aboard the TOMX Plus rocket, tuned to a wavelength that excites sodium atoms, caused the sodium layer to fluoresce. This glowing band then becomes a natural tracer for atmospheric motions, allowing scientists to track its bends, ripples, and swirls as energy moves through the upper atmosphere. And honestly, TLDR, it created some really beautiful patterns in the night sky. And that wraps up today's Thursday Intel briefing for you, friends. But there's more intelligence sharing to come in my chat with Greg Gillinger. But before we get to that, though, N2K senior producer Alice Carruth joins me now with a roundup of the additional stories that we think you should know about. Alice?
Thanks, Maria. The United Launch Alliance has started preparations for their next launch on behalf of Amazon's Project Kuiper broadband satellite constellation. No launch date has been announced so far, but watch this space. And Ars Technica is reporting that the chief of Russia's main spacecraft manufacturer issued a dire warning this week, saying that its corporation has reached a critical condition and cannot continue in its present state. You can read more about both stories along with all the original sources of all the other stories mentioned throughout the show by following the links in our selected reading section or by heading to space.n2k.com and clicking on today's episode title.
Hey, T-Minus crew, if your business is looking to grow your voice in the industry, expand the reach of your thought leadership, or recruit talent, T-Minus can help. We would love to hear from you. Just send us an email at space@n2k.com or send us a note through our website, and we can connect about building a program to meet your goals.
You hear from us here at T-Minus every single day. Now we'd love to hear from you. Your voice helps shape the future of N2K Networks. Tell us what matters most to you by completing our annual audience survey. Your insights help us grow to better meet your needs. There's a link to the survey in our show notes. We're collecting your comments through August 31st. Thanks.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Now let's check in with what's going on in orbit with China this month with Integrity ISR's Greg Gillinger. Last month's segment was fascinating. There's a lot going on. There always is. And you've got some fascinating insights to share. So let's just dive in and start with an update on China refueling. And I'm super curious about what that means. So,
right. There's a couple of Chinese satellites in geosynchronous orbit. China has stated that they intend to conduct some sort of refueling demonstration with the Shenzhen 25 satellite. And it has been paired with Shenzhen 21 now since the 2nd of July. Now, all of our information is based off of ground-based telescopes and radar telescopes as well, and also passive RF listening devices, right? But from the ground, these two satellites are so close together that we can't tell one from the other. So they've been like that for going on a month and a half now. So after the 2nd of July, they kind of grappled together, we assume, and apparently are conducting some sort of refueling, right? So for listeners out there, they may be familiar with the Northrop Grumman Mission Extension Vehicle. That's where a satellite actually clamped onto another satellite in GEO and then dragged it and served as its kind of surrogate propulsion system. We don't believe that's what's happening here. This is kind of a first that we would see in GEO, and that they're actually passing propellant from SJ-25 into the SJ-21 vehicle.
Passing propellant?
Yes. So that at the end of the day,
wow,
like a rental car, you drop it off full, right? So SJ-25 is going to, at some point, we believe, release SJ-21, and they can both go their separate ways. Unlike with the Northrop Grumman vehicle, right? If that detaches from the other satellite can't maneuver. In this case, they're passing propellant, so you'll have two satellites that are then capable of independently maneuvering from one another. All right, so we've been watching this since January with the launch of SJ-25, but really focused in after the 2nd of July when they became kind of one dot in the sky. And recently, actually the week of 8 through 15 August, we saw massive maneuvers from both, right? They're joined together, so when one moves, the other one moves as well. And we saw something that was pretty unusual, very unusual, I would say, for geostationary satellites, and actually any satellites, in that they conducted a significant plane change maneuver. Now, for some of your listeners who might be wondering what a plane change maneuver is, that's a change in the orbit's inclination, right? And also the right ascension of the ascending node. But you're changing your orbital plane. And why that's so unusual is it takes a lot of energy. And when we talk about energy and space, that means fuel, right? And for spacecraft, we measure fuel in terms of, it's kind of like aircraft measures fuel in pounds, because that's how they kind of think. In space, they measure fuel in terms of meters per second, right? So a typical maneuver in GEO is just some sort of station keeping maneuver. And it's usually certainly less than 5 meters per second, oftentimes less than 1. And they're just kind of maintaining their spot in orbit. Now, what SJ-25 and 21 did, they went from an inclination of 10.4 degrees. So it's, in its orbit, it's going to be 10.4 degrees north of the equator at one point, and another point will be 10.4 degrees south. And they changed it all the way down to 4.4 degrees, which is, do some quick math, that's a 6-degree change. And we estimate the fuel, this isn't completely accurate. We don't know hardly anything about the mass of the satellite, so there's other things. But rule of thumb-wise, just basic physics, the calculations we came up with that this maneuver would have required about 332 meters per second. So, orders of magnitude larger than what you would normally see from a station keeping perspective. So very unusual. So they're currently now, it looks like they have all stabilized at that 4.4 degree inclination. I should mention this is all occurring over the equator, roughly speaking, like southeast of the Philippines at 127 degrees east longitude, right? So that's right off the Chinese coast. So it's something that's very visible for them and for all of their command and control sorts of assets in mainland China should have no problem communicating with these satellites.
I'm fascinated by, this is not an impromptu mission. This had to have been planned out quite far in advance. So one wonders about the nature of what they're doing here. It's just kind of interesting that this must have been sort of in the pipeline for quite some time, but it's all conjecture.
And both these satellites, we believe, are made by the same, not necessarily the same team, but the same state-owned enterprise in China. It's hard to be certain of anything, but there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that would say that this has been planned for quite some time. And China, when they launched SJ-25, they announced, hey, this is going to be a orbit refueling demonstration. So we had that going for us. And they launched it into this very unusual orbit that just happened to match up exactly with the orbital plane of SJ-21. And just as a refresher, SJ-21, when they launched it in 2021, they announced, hey, this is a debris removal demonstration. And then that's when it went and lassoed a dead Chinese satellite and hauled it out to supersynchronous orbit. And used a lot of fuel in that process, right? So it makes a lot of sense that would be the object for this refueling attempt, and it certainly was planned well in advance, right? So China has not really released any information, so we may see some additional maneuvers of them coupled or docked, I should say. SJ-25 was launched with this mission in mind, so I suspect that it has probably a lot more fuel capacity than the SJ-21. So I would anticipate SJ-25 is doing most of the maneuvering for the pair of them right now. Just the SJ-21 is kind of like the rental car that you need to return full, right? So drop it up to the orbit that they want it to be and as precise as they can for whatever the next object is, if there is a next object. Drop it off. And then if SJ-25 is able to go do its thing, what do you do is that it for SJ-25, or does it have more fuel in the tank, so to speak, and literally, to refuel other objects? So things I'm looking at are other interesting Chinese spacecraft that are kind of near that plane. SJ-25 is currently 4.4, but you've got 3 satellites at 2.9 degrees, one of which is the SJ-23, which we've seen, maneuvering frequently and observing other satellites. And then there are 2 Xi'an-12 satellites as well that have similar missions. We believe they're for kind of inspection missions as well. And they've been crisscrossing the geo belts for they launched in 2021 as well. So those are some potential candidates. We don't know. This could have been it. We'll keep watching from afar and see what we can determine and see what China's got as planned.
Something fascinating to watch, and I will stay tuned for your insights, certainly. But that's not all today. That's what we're talking about, right? There's also China's increased launch cadence for its Guowang P Leo constellation, which we cover now and then on T-minus when there's updates on that one. So that is a familiar name to me as well. I'm very curious to hear what insights you have on this.
Yeah, it's pretty clear to me that they've kind of reached a point where they're comfortable with whatever spacecraft that they have manufactured, and now they're just getting into orbit. So what we've seen, just top-level view, is in the last 3 weeks, we've seen 5 launches, variety of different types of space launch vehicles. They've launched 2 Long March 6 Alphas, 5 satellites each. They've launched a Long March 8A, launched a Long March 12, and their largest rocket that largest space launch vehicle that they have is just the Long March 5 Bravo, with carrying 10 of these satellites. They're going to a variety of different orbits, all to about the Guolong constellation itself. What they've announced is that there's really going to be two major shells, if you will. So the outer shell is operating at around 1,200 kilometers, and it looks like they're building out two separate inclinations. So satellites inclined at 50 degrees, and then quite a few more at this point inclined at 86.5 degrees, so almost a polar orbit. And then they're going to have an inner shell, which they haven't even started building yet. They've got 4 test satellites in that right now, and it's at about 400 to 500 kilometers up. So in the last 3 weeks, they've more than doubled the size of the constellation. They're up to 72 operational satellites on orbit right now. They've got about 14 test satellites as well. I neglected to mention that they had a failed launch for some additional test satellites, I believe. There's rumors out there that the Zhuque 2, Charlie, I believe it was, that had a second stage problem, was also carrying 4 test satellites for the Guolong constellation. I don't think that's been confirmed, but that's kind of what's out there on the internets these days. So pretty clear that they're looking to build this out as rapidly as possible. At a recent briefing, one of their leaders, the Guolong, China SatNet is kind of the company heading this up. One of their leaders was saying that they hope to have 400 satellites on orbit by the end of 2026. So, and we're seeing evidence that they are ready to do so. There are also some concern on China that it's kind of a real estate grab, right? That a lot of the good orbits are already being occupied by other proliferated LEO constellations, notably Starlink, Starshield, Kuiper, right? So I think China is very motivated right now. Satellites ready or not, they're going to start populating so they can make a claim to those orbital slots. For those of us that follow this stuff closely and try to report on it, it's going to be a very busy couple of years, for sure.
An orbital land grab, I think that was the first time I've heard that described that way, but that is a really, I keep saying fascinating because it is. It's just, I never would have thought that, but it makes sense as you say it, and goodness, okay, that's just the world we live in.
Launching, the architecture seems to be becoming a little bit more clear, right? So for their 86.5 degree inclined satellites, it looks like they're separating them by 30 degrees of RAN each. So to fill out the entire constellation, you're looking at 6 orbital planes, each separated by 30 degrees. They have done 5 out of the 6 thus far. And then they also have 2 orbital planes inclined at 50 degrees. So as they continue with their launches, we'll start to see what this constellation is actually going to look like. At this point, it looks like they're intending to put up 10 satellites in those 86.5 degree planes and 9 satellites in the 50 degree planes. This could all change, right? Once they have established their position in those orbits, they may populate them with far more than 9 or 10 satellites. They just recently launched a Long March 6 Alpha, again, to that 86.5 degree plane. And the plane that they chose matched up with the previous Long March 6 Alpha launch. Each carried 5 satellites, brings it to 10. Whenever they launch the Long March 5, it's carrying 10 satellites, typically to that 86.5 degree inclination. So that seems to be what their plan is at this point. Now, how they use it is another way that we'll figure. It's another thing for us to consider. Like the Long March 5 is their largest rocket, capable of carrying up to 25,000 kilograms. That suggests that these satellites are significant size, significantly larger than anything we've seen for Starlink or Kuiper or OneWeb, which measure in the couple hundred kilograms per satellite. So it kind of makes you wonder what other capabilities are on board there, right? They're advertised as being this broadband internet service capability. But given that additional mass, what else is possible there? We don't know, but it's just something to continue to monitor.
We will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. I don't think I'll be smashing anyone's dream by saying this, but yes, sadly, the window of opportunity for being part of the Artemis II flight crew is most definitely closed. That said, if you want to play a part in the Artemis II mission, there is a way. Because NASA is inviting volunteers to help track the Artemis II mission when the Orion capsule carries the crew around the moon and back in April next year, fingers crossed. And no, this has nothing to do with budget cuts. The agency still has the near space and deep space networks to handle primary communications. But NASA is curious, and who can blame them, about how well commercial and non-government systems can follow the spacecraft too. After all, during Artemis I in 2022, 10 outside groups, including space agencies, universities, companies, and even private citizens, successfully picked up Orion's signals and tracked and measured changes from Orion's radio wave transmissions, which was pretty cool. So, can we do it again and more? Well, NASA certainly wants us all to give it a try. So if you're part of an organization with ground tracking capabilities, NASA has an RFI for you. The voluntary mission, if you choose to accept it, will be to attempt to receive and measure Orion's transmissions as the crewed spacecraft makes its 10-day lunar loop. It's definitely got a bit of a cool factor for sure, but it's also very useful. That collected data will help inform how the U.S. transitions towards a commercial-first approach in deep space communications, which, after all, will be infrastructure critical for future Moon and hopefully Mars missions. There is a link in the show notes for you if you want to take a look at the RFI. And that's T-Minus, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. We'd love to know what you think of our podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. If you like the show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to space@n2k.com. We're proud that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K helps space and cybersecurity professionals grow, learn, and stay informed. As the nexus for discovery and connection, we bring you the people, the technology, and the ideas shaping the future of secure innovation. Learn how at n2k.com. N2K's senior producer is Alice Carruth. Our producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I am your host, Maria Varmazis. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow.